How do you use animation and motion graphics at your church? And how do you break in to YouTube? We'll talk about both of these topics today with the guys from Blackbar. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. This is the Making Sunday Happen podcast. On today's show, I talk with Caleb Weidman and Snyder from Blackbar. These are some guys that I've gotten to know in our space that are doing some great work with clients as well as their own podcast and training tools for church media and production folks. I talked with Caleb about the importance of animation and motion graphics in the church and how to get into animation if you are a beginner. I also talked with Zach about the best ways to break into YouTube and some best practices on using the platform for ministry. Great conversations with both of these guys on the way. Hey, ministry leader, I wanted to let you know about a great conference that we partner with. This year, the 9th annual That Church Conference will be happening at Lake Lanier, Georgia, at the Resort and Conference Center there. My great friends Mark McDonald, Ben Stapley, Justin Dean, and others will be taking the stage along with other great speakers. This conference is October 25th and 26th. You can use the code MSH, as in Making Sunday Happen, MSH10 for 10% off the ticket price at thatcc.com, just for being a faithful listener to this podcast. Again, use the code MSH10 for 10% off your ticket price at thatcc.com. Hey guys, I'm hanging out with my friend Caleb Weidman from Blackbar. Caleb, what's up, man?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
All right, so I'm great. So we're hanging out at SALT. So before we dive into your workshop content about MoGraph 101, which I will get super excited about. We might go into way too much detail.
Probably.
For folks. Before we dive into that, tell me a little bit about Blackbar for those who may not know of you guys.
Yeah, so Blackbar is sort of two halves. The first half, we started off in 2020, creating content, YouTube, podcast. We have a Discord community specifically for churches who need help understanding how to use media, marketing, tech to reach their communities around them. We serve both people who are full-time media people who are volunteers, and your secretary who has no idea what they're doing, but is in charge of that sort of stuff. Then we also are a media agency helping out with pretty much anything that involves pixels, whether that's design, video, web. We also do consulting for churches, nonprofits, even secular companies when necessary. So yeah, we do it all.
So talk to me about the consulting side. What are some of the problems when people come to you for consulting? What are some of the problems that you're helping them solve?
For sure. I mean, we definitely run the gamut. Most of the consulting that we do these days is communications based. Either they're having trouble communicating with their congregation, or they're finding difficulty communicating effectively to people outside their congregation. So we talk them through marketing strategies, communication strategies, making sure they're using the right tools, making sure they're saying the right things with the right tools. Mostly that's our field.
So what's the number one tool that you recommend constantly?
The number one tool that we recommend constantly.
Like, well, I'm constantly seeing churches not using Planning Center. You got to be on Planning Center.
Sure.
Like, what the world?
There are definitely super powerful tools and software. I think, and this is just, I'm a philosophy guy. So I definitely think that mindset is the most important thing. Good. We have 3 questions that we ask every time we start literally any project, whether it's internal, external, if it's relational based, if it's evangelism based. It's who are you trying to reach? Who's your audience? What are you trying to get them to feel? And then why should they care? Because they got a lot of stuff they could be doing with their time. I think, honestly, those 3 have informed way more of my career and what I'm helping people with than any specific software or tool that I've suggested.
Good answer. Yeah.
I'll
accept that.
Okay, thanks. Good.
All right, so let's dive into your workshop.
Sure.
Okay, so you're talking about animation.
Yes.
motion graphics
Yes.
101. So there's a little bit of a difference in those two terms.
Yes.
Animation and motion graphics. Walk me through the difference.
For sure. I think for most people, especially getting into the church world, motion graphics is a subsection of animation. Animation is a broader category. Usually when people think animation, they're thinking like
Cartoons.
Disney cartoons, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Motion graphics is more specifically, we're talking about usually a graphic design piece, an illustration or whatever that is being animated out. Think sermon slides, think announcement slides and stuff. That's what we're talking about when we're thinking motion graphics.
So me and you can totally geek out on After Effects.
Yes, all day long.
Okay. So let's talk about motion graphics for people who are first starting to get into it.
Yes.
So 101, beginner level.
For sure.
What are you encouraging them to do?
sure.
How to start?
So I'd say if you're working at a church, this is my one caveat, is that animation, motion graphics, any part of animation is incredibly time consuming. You know this. I know this, right? Out of all of the work that we do as Blackbar, as an agency, easily the most expensive work we do is animation, just because of how time consuming it is. If you're in a situation where you're working at a church and you are barely hitting deadlines on Sunday, this is not the time to get into animation, start animating your sermons. Absolutely not. It's super cool, and I think animation can be used to communicate super effectively when you do have the time to implement it. But this is not like a critical, like necessary piece to make something.
Okay, so sidebar, probably self-promotion for both of us here.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is where an agency like you guys or 1230 comes in, because we have experience in motion graphics. We know how to do things very quickly.
100%.
So if you give us an announcement slide to do on Monday and you need it to have some motion to it, you need it by the weekend, we can probably make that happen and make it look really cool. If you don't know what you're doing in motion graphics, it's going to take you forever to learn how to move those keyframes around in After Effects.
So if you...
Shameless self-promotion for us both.
We're over, for sure. If you are interested in getting into animation, I honestly, my wholehearted recommendation is After Effects. There are certainly a lot of programs that you can go in between, but I think the entire Adobe Creative Suite, I mean, it can be expensive, especially if you're at a smaller church, but the amount of value you get out of that, between Photoshop, Illustrator, graphic design tools, video editing tools, audio editing tools, animation
and
tools.
for everything, we're talking about the Creative Cloud. $55, $55 a month, something like that.
Absolutely.
So that's the investment.
Worth it. And After Effects, I think there are certainly programs that, like depending on if you're getting into 3D or character animation or whatever, that are more specialized. But I think After Effects is the best at touching about everything and doing it pretty well. Okay, so
you can relate to this. I've been in After Effects for 20 years, and I'm just scratching the surface. I feel like.
100%.
So it's such a complicated program that I'm sure if I'm a 101 beginner, which I was 20 years ago, I'm looking at it, it's super daunting. Where do I even, oh my goodness, this is so complicated.
The amount of creatives I've talked to that are designers or video people, and they've opened up After Effects one time and just been terrified of it.
I'm out.
And just gotten out. Dozens of people at this point. I think that if you can learn what I call, and even After Effects has the 5 most important variables in animation, you could do like 80% of the animation you see at other churches or TV. Which is position. I don't think I have to explain position. I think we can agree on that one. Scale. Again, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Rotation. Opacity, which is how opaque something is, 100% opaque or transparent or somewhere in between. And then anchor point, which is sort of what I refer to it as the center of gravity of your object. Right? I think if you could figure out those 5 things, which are just 2 little twirl downs away in every layer, if you can figure that out, you could do 80% of all of the animation you'd see on TV and anywhere else.
Good point. All right, so in your workshop, you kind of brought up project files. And you walked them through. What kind of project did you do with your students there in your workshop?
So we went over a couple things. Number one, I had like a test slide that I had designed for a client a while back, and we all sort of animated it together. I had all the finished pieces in place, and we sort of did a build-in together. Actually, a recommendation I would have, if you're animating a slide, doing motion graphics, anything like that, start at the end. Start where you want things to be,
Yes.
and then just go backwards from that and build it in. Trust me, you're going to save so much time trying to remember exactly where you wanted something to be.
Yeah.
We also went over some animation work I did for SALT conference, actually specifically helped them out with the intro video of the dash that we did. It was super fun. So.
Yeah. Cool. So what are some quick takeaways that I can take if I'm interested in After Effects, interested in motion graphics? What are some things that I can take back and just kind of start with beginning stages?
Yeah, I think especially in the context of a church service. So I'm a graphic design is the first thing I learned how to do, right? And I learned very early that graphic design is all about hierarchy. It's all about emphasis. It's saying either through the use of color, through the use of size, through the use of proximity, a number of other tools, drawing emphasis to certain things and drawing emphasis away from other things. As a graphic designer, if you're getting into animation, motion is just one more thing you could use to add to that list. So example that I used in the class, relatively early at my time working at a church, we did a sermon series that was sort of a spoof on Star Wars. It was called The Dark Side. I'm an animator. I am not a lawyer. I don't know if that's legal. It's fine. We got away with it, right? And every time that there was a new verse that we wanted to put on the screen, I had like a TIE fighter fly in from the side and do a wipe, and the text showed up, right? And what that did, as much as it was fun and exciting, every single time I wanted to draw attention to the screens, I moved them, right? I added motion to the screens, and it created the emphasis that was necessary. A couple months later, we did another sermon series called Life's Work, where the graphic had like a couple desks, and there was a clock and a calendar, and I just did like a looping 30-second like nice animation. The clock was moving, the calendar was flipping pages, whatever. It was just a fun, nice background. And 20 minutes into the sermon, we had to pull it because no one was looking at the pastor. Everybody was just locked into watching this stupid little clock go around over and over and over again. But what I realized now that I didn't at the moment was that motion is a tool to draw attention.
Yes.
And I was drawing attention away from what was the most important thing at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll give you an example. Over your shoulder right here is an LED wall.
Yes.
With
absolutely.
Incredible motion. You can't see it on camera. But it's taken all all of me to focus on you not the LED wall because there's so much motion up there. So I've missed your entire, I have no idea what you've been saying.
Sure. Even for SALT, this is the second day now. And I know not everybody listening to it will have been here in the building, but in the first sermon last night, they had an animation that was playing in the background that was a big clock ticking. Right?
Yes.
This sermon that they had this morning, they paused it.
Yeah.
I have to imagine they learned the lesson I did about a decade ago when I ran into the same issue.
Yeah. Good call. Good point. All right. So one thing I want to let people know as I leave you is you guys are pretty new to the space. You started in 2020?
2020, yep.
Okay. So a lot of people kind of in our industry, some people think on the outside that there's a lot of competition and whatever. And one thing that's cool with you guys is I've become, fast friends with you and a lot of people in this industry are friends, buddies, cheering people on, and I want you to know that I'm that for you. Definitely. Cheering you guys on. Just so proud of what you're doing. Keep at it, man. You guys are doing such a great job.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Happy to be a part of this community and serving the kingdom the way only nerds can.
Thanks for your time, man.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching and listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would, so that you never miss an episode of the show. Just go to youtube.com/1230media, all spelled out, to find and subscribe now. Click the alarm bell to be notified of all future episodes. You can subscribe at youtube.com/1230media. That's all spelled out, youtube.com/1230media. Hey guys, I'm hanging out with Zack Snyder, director of 300 and Superman. Yeah. Oh, wait, no.
Different Zack Snyder.
This is Zack Snyder, Blackbar, extraordinaire.
Yes.
Sorry, I got mistaken there.
Hey, not the first time, won't be the last.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Having a great time here at SALT. SALT is, I don't know, it just always brings what you need, It just refreshes you in a great way. At least it has for me.
Yeah. So tell me, you guys at Blackbar, I was talking with Caleb earlier, and Nick. You guys are doing such a fantastic job. Give me an update of what you guys are doing and some ways that you guys are serving the kingdom.
Yeah, so this year has been really interesting because we've really started to break out our media agency, which I'm sure Caleb talked a little bit about. Because Blackbar has always been ministry forward, creating content that educates, encourages, and inspires Christian creatives and church creatives. So podcasts, YouTube, community. But this year especially, Caleb has broken out into the digital agency of like creating content for churches, not quite contracted work, more like really getting to the weeds of helping church communities understand why content is necessary. So it's been a learning process for that. Caleb quit his job at the beginning of the year, and he's been charging us forward ever since, So lots of learning. So
yeah, awesome. So you guys, you did a workshop
Yeah.
all about YouTube and how we can be better at YouTube, and then how we can create some content, right? So talk me through some of that.
Yeah, so our biggest thing was we've seen, especially since 2020, so many of the church live streams were not online focused. They just put cameras in the back of their rooms, and then they basically hope that would work online.
Right.
And our point is that should be the start of the conversation, not the end game.
Yep.
So in our conversation, we got to talk a little bit about online strategies for YouTube, external strategies for YouTube, and then also kind of how to make videos that are actually good.
Okay, so talk me through both of those.
Yeah.
What are the external strategies and walk me through all of that stuff.
For sure, yeah. So starting with internal strategies, I guess. Well, I just talked about how YouTube can be used as a first impressions tool. YouTube can be used as a small groups tool. YouTube can be used as a, quotes, live experience to engage with your community. Even using your sermon content, if you already have a good investment in a live or an online focus to your weekend content, there's no reason you can't repurpose that content on your workload.
Right.
You just have to be intentional about making sure that your internal people are being hit. Like, is the content you're creating solving people's problems?
Good.
Is it answering people's questions? Those are the questions you got to be asking if you want to make it an internal focus. So that's at least the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. So then externally, we've always enjoyed the idea of digital missionary. So it's this thing that essentially you identify your audience, you identify what their needs are, and you identify with the audience. So like I enjoy playing Destiny 2, the video game. If
Big gamer, huh?
Yeah. Well, sure, I probably stay up way too late than I should. But if I am trying to get in touch with an audience that plays the game that I do, they're going to know if I'm talking about, if I'm talking about Madden in the Destiny chat, it's like, this is not connecting. This is not a one-to-one. I have to be part of the community. I have to identify what their needs are and how I can connect with them. And then when I'm connecting and engaging in a real way, they're going to understand that. And I think communication and relationship, that's where true evangelism comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
So you talked about how YouTube was kind of a step one,
Yes.
but not the end game. Let's talk the end game.
Yeah.
What are we after there?
Yeah, so I mean, we think that YouTube can for sure be an end game. I think community is probably the biggest thing where YouTube doesn't really foster
Right.
super close connection.
Right. The chat window is not enough.
Exactly. Like it's a phenomenal funnel. Like if you're trying to get people that have a very niche interest, like Caleb always talks about how he got big into Nerf guns, he's able to connect with people that are into Nerf guns. But if he wants to have real relationships, like you can touch on YouTube comments in the YouTube community chat. But if you want real end game engagement, you need to develop a social hub. So we're not saying YouTube can't be that, but really we've seen stuff like Facebook groups and Discord and WhatsApp, WeChat, like those kind of things seem to be a better place to take people if you want to go beyond the weekend experience. So let it be a funnel, but make sure you have a connection between content and community.
Should I be in multiple places? Should I be on YouTube, be on Facebook, be on my own website? Should I be on all those multiple platforms, or should I focus on, we're going to put all our eggs in one basket?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what the objective of your church is. I think developing a clear digital strategy is probably the step one before you should decide any of these things. If you think that you want to be everywhere all at once, developing and establishing a niche, like being a certain thing for people, then yeah, get as many places as you can. But especially, I mean, we've heard it a lot over this week. There's a lot of people who are hurting. They're burnt out. They don't have enough capacity. In that instance, I would honestly focus on one.
I would too, yeah.
Put all your guns into like a YouTube that you got a clear digital strategy for, that maybe I, as the only media person, can sustain in a healthy way.
Yeah,
Because
and
if you're
don't
not-
feel bad if you're not on
Exactly.
Facebook also, and
Exactly.
also on Twitter, also on
TikTok, and they're bringing Vine back now, and so,
right.
you know.
You don't have to be, if you don't have the capacity and the team to support that.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Awesome. What else did you guys talk about?
So the last thing we talked about was how to make videos that are solid and quality. We talked about the 3 C's. That was quality, content, and then, wow, I just forgot the other C.
You know,
Nick's gonna
quality
kill
starts
me.
with a Q.
I know. That was when we figured a nice little connecting point is knowing. See, you caught that. So
I
you
did.
know that's the first of the 3 C's is the quality.
Okay.
Yeah. So the quality with a Q is super important to pay attention to. But we make the point that so many of us are gearheads. So we're like, let's buy the biggest camera and let's buy a Red. And it's like, okay, let's stop. Let's make sure our audio quality is good.
Yes.
Because how many of us have watched terrible sounding audio but great visuals, and it just kills the experience.
Correct.
So we say, starting with audio is important. Getting lights established, getting kind of like a good production, a solid framing, understanding of how visual things work in a cinematic setting. And then once you earn that process, once you realize what's best, then invest into the camera. So that's kind of that process as far as internals. So
What were some of the problems that people expressed in your workshop, or maybe some of the problems that people are expressing when you're consulting that you guys are really going after solving?
Yeah, I think you started to touch on it. Everyone thinks that they have to do everything. And that's not the reality. The point that we tried to make today when our workshop was find your niche, find the thing that is most important for you. What is the one thing that you can do that will reach people in no other way? Like if I can focus on my thing, if you focus on your thing, if you guys in the background focus on your thing, we can together have a larger reach than if I try to just reach every single person in the world.
Right.
So that's a big thing that I think is it just got to click for people. And that's once it does, that's whenever you can start to get clear.
Good.
So.
How can people connect with Blackbar? How can
Yeah.
people find you?
Yeah, I mean, so we are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, though we don't really use Facebook that much. And then, of course, you can check out our website, blk.bar. That's pretty much got links to everything that you would need to get in contact with us on.
So, Zack Snyder, filmmaker, what's your next movie?
I think I'm going to do a church creatives movie. How about that?
Okay, we'll
All
take
about burnout.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Hey guys, thanks so much for being here this week. Never miss an episode. Go to makingsundayhappen.com for all the archives, and be sure to subscribe to the show if you would. Be sure to hit the notification bell so that you never, ever miss an episode. All right, next week I welcome my friends Phil Battle and Dennis Choi. They both stopped by. I'm talking with both of them about staffing, culture, and leadership trends. All that's next week on the podcast. We'll go out there and create some incredible worship experiences at your church this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.